Okay. Here we go. So 15 minutes late. I know sometimes I'm 5 minutes late, sometimes I'm on time, and that scares people. But today I'm going to, real quick before I get into this is our last episode of Everyday Miracle Women in History. I was doing this series to honor courageous, amazing, life-changing, world-changing women in history that you might not know about, that maybe didn't get enough credit, didn't get enough press, or that we just didn't learn about in school and we should have, because they're still impacting our lives today. So whether it's business, science, or technology, political action, these women were absolute game changers for their time. And the whole point of this series is not only to honor these women, but to allow ourselves to see ourselves inside of them. Let them kind of like lead by example, because if they could do what they did with as little as they had, then we can definitely do whatever we want with all the things that we have, all of the resources. I don't care who we're talking to. We have way more resources than anybody had 100 years back. So the reason why I'm late this morning, this is not an excuse. This is to serve as a warning shot for anybody else who lives a life like me. See what I mean? That's how we do it. Stick with me for more professional episodes. Okay. So I'm super excited about this live today. So I stay up late and I'm like looking at more things. Like I've been looking at this woman for over a week and a half, and I've heard about her, but I was like deep diving, of course, looking at all the different articles and whatever. I stayed up late. But this morning, I was like excited to get up because I was like, I knew I was going to talk about this chick. And then my son runs in the door in my bedroom, and this is what wakes me up. Mom, you left your sunroof open and there's water all over your car. And I was like, what? And I run out of my bed and I'm like grabbing towels on my way out the door, and I'm like mopping up the leather seats, the rainwater all over the leather seats. And it's not just rain, it's like, sticks and like tree crap. And so that's how I started my morning. I'm like, I'm not going to make this mean anything. I'm going to reset, because if I let this mean something, I'll have a bad day. So like, let's reset. And then, and then I get in the house, and then, the two youngest were little grumpy, little running late. It was messy. Let's just say it was messy with them. We'll get into it. And then I start driving to work, and I realize I forgot some of my food that I was going to bring. And then I get to work, and I bring the curry, the chicken curry. That stuff that's like super, super potent. And it's in a container. The lid wasn't tight enough, apparently. So when I took it out of the bag, I dropped it all over my jumpsuit. What am I wearing? It's overalls, denim overalls. That's going to absorb the smell of curry. I will be smelling like curry for the rest of the day, possibly the rest of my life. And hey, Anne. And by the way, guys, if you're here, I can't see you, so say hi. And then what else happened? I don't know. This is why I'm 15 minutes late, because of all of these unforeseen events. So if you are anything like me and you have a hard time focusing and whatever, resetting is critical, but also like planning ahead and maybe looking at the weather. I never do that. Looking at the weather before it happens, just in case you have a sunroof open, you might want to close it in case rain's expected. I don't know. Okay, so Jen, the snacks. Don't forget the snacks. And I can't. Luckily, I have some, like a quick shot of protein that I can throw in my face. But let's do this thing, because this woman, we talked about a variety of women over the course of this series, and they're all like monstrously huge in their own right. And I want to be able to do more and more and more of this, but I was doing it for Women's History Month, and then I had some health stuff come up, and I'm like, I can't do it for these weeks. And so I'm back at it, because I promised the last one I was definitely going to do the last one. So get ready. This is a heavy hitter. This isn't as fun and airy as like Hedy Lamarr or Josephine Cochran, because those girls didn't have the struggle that this one had. So we're talking about an investigative journalist. We're talking about an educator, an author. She was an early leader in the civil rights whole movement, activist. She was a suffragette crusader for women's rights. Melissa, hey girl, for women's right to vote, because at this point in time, she didn't have it. Women didn't have the right to vote. She was a political powerhouse, actually. She was a newspaper owner. She was a black woman in 1862, and this is who we're talking about. First of all, I don't know anybody right now that's doing all that. And this is a woman who was set up in a country that had just released slavery. Emancipation Proclamation just happened, and this is what this woman was doing. So get ready to ditch your excuses, okay? Because Ida B. Wells is coming at you, and Ida B. Wells gives you the middle finger for all of your lame excuses in 2021, okay? in love. I think she does it in love. Yay! Hey, Andrea! Okay, get ready. Get ready. Okay, it's 1862. It is Holly Springs, Missouri, introducing the adorable, and she's so adorable. She's actually a knockout, but as a baby, she's so adorable. Ida B. Wells. Okay, Ida B. Wells. All right, we said investigative journalist, educator, author, civil rights activist, early leader in the movement, suffragette crusader, political powerhouse. This woman was a newspaper owner, but like she was a writer. She wrote in publications all over the country. Okay, so she should have never had the opportunity she had, right? Because she was a black woman living in the 1800s. Okay, let's set the stage. It's 1862, Holly Springs, Missouri. This is a small town in the Midwest, all right? She's a little baby born to one of 7 kids in a family of slaves. She's about 6 months old when the Emancipation Proclamation was passed by Abe Lincoln, when it was signed releasing slavery in the United States. Okay, so this is Civil War era. That's what this is. So this is the same year that when she was born. This is the same year that there was a battle in Holly Springs. It was a pretty famous battle during the Civil War, and basically the Confederates stormed the area that she was in. Was like Union territory, and the Confederates stormed the town, took a bunch of supplies, basically like ruined the town in terms of like supplies that the Union Army could have, but also like the people of the town. So things were really, really tough for pretty much everybody there, like white, black, or whatever. And it was the Civil War. So happening on our land. So she's, this is a community that's devastated. This is a family full of slaves, 7 children, 2 parents that were together, and 6 months into her life, Emancipation Proclamation, slaves are now free. Amazing, amazing, amazing. But just because they were free does not mean, hey Michelle, hey Andrew, just because they were free does not mean that it was going to be easy for them now. It's like, oh, they're free, slaves are free, that's great, everything's equal. Of course not. That's not how it happened. So they were free, but finding jobs was difficult, right? Like now you're not a slave anymore, so people aren't paying you pennies. Now you want actual money like everybody else, but they don't want to pay you that because they got used to paying you almost nothing and just owning you, right? Like this is a hard transition for the country at the time. Hardest for black people who were formerly slaves. So this is her family is finding work and everything, and her father this is her inspiration. So her inspiration comes from a lot of things, but her father was really active in the Republican Party at that time, and he was part of the Freedmen's Aid Society. So he also helped found a university called Shaw University, which is now Rust College, and this was he was a founding member, but he was also on the board. This is a school that helped educate newly freed enslaved people. So people who were formerly slaves now had a chance to go to school. And remember, most slaves were not properly educated. Most of them did not know how to read or write. And so this is a really, really important endeavor that her father took on. And this is also where Ida B. Wells started her formal education too. So, because again, these newly free black people, former slaves, it's not like they could just go to a school, like any school. It's not like these white schools were like, sure, come on in. That was definitely not happening either. So what are they going to do, right? They have to like form their own everything from scratch. So this is her father, and he was like doing big things already for the community and for his people. And this is where Ida grew up, and this is where she was at the dinner table for, right? Like this is huge. So this is the beginning. So 1878, Ida's now 16 years old. All right. So 16 years old, the yellow fever epidemic started sweeping the nation, hit hard in Holly Springs, and it wiped out thousands of people, including her parents and one of her younger brothers. So now she's an orphan, and so are her other 5 siblings, and she has 5 remaining siblings, and she's got to figure out a way to take care of these people. So, hey, Vera. So first of all, dealing with the loss of both of your parents and a brother, and now it's like, oh, can you just like, got to keep the house running, life goes on. Even though you're just like a newly free black woman, a young black woman in the Midwest, go for it, take care of it. Can you just for a second imagine how incredibly difficult that would have been for her? Of course she did it. So she's 16 years old. She's got 5 brothers and sisters. How's she gonna make money? Well, Ida, ever the clever, she decides to go to a country school, and the country school is basically all you need to do to be a teacher is to have some like basic understanding of like school fundamentals and know how to read and write. Well, she did because she had an awesome set of parents, and she knew how to read and write. She convinced, aka lied, to the school administrator to be like, yeah, I'm 18. Listen, I'm 18. Okay, just like hire me. And they were like, I don't know if I believe you, but you're adorable. You look like a lady, and you can definitely read and write. We need teachers. Let's go. So I was like, yeah, let's go. So she starts teaching there, and I'm not endorsing lying. I'm just saying she's a beast, and like, I don't hate her for it. Anyway, so Ida lied her way into a teaching job so she could support her family. Get it, girl? And she did the job, okay? Like, it was a stupid rule. You should be 16 and be able to teach everybody. All right. So it's 1882, and she's now 20 years old. So she scoops up her sisters, and she's like, I'm going to move to my aunt's house in Memphis, Tennessee. Her brothers are now getting apprentice jobs, so they're going to take care of themselves. They're going to be okay, but she's got younger sisters, and she wants to move to her aunt's house and have like a family again, and she needs help taking care of these kids too. And she's getting older. She's 20 years old. She needs to get a career going and whatever. So this whole country school thing, like, it wasn't her dream or anything. It was like how to survive. So she went to a school called Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is where she started really taking an interest in writing. And yeah, Andrew, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. It's like, she's 18. If she feels 18, she's 18, right? Don't we do that now? Like, whatever you feel, you are. Okay. So she starts writing about things. She starts becoming really interested in writing, and she's getting good at it. And she starts writing about things she's passionate about, right? Like, this is what we teach in business, isn't it? Like, do what you love and just learn how to make it a living. It's easy. So she started writing about race and politics in the South. Who knows better than Ida, former slave living in the Midwest territory that was like ruined by the Civil War, and this is perfect material for her. So she ended up getting published in a bunch of black newspapers. And then she ended up being, later down the line, this is Ida B. Wells in the 1800s, black woman in the 1800s, former slave, starts owning newspapers. She owned 2 newspapers. What? Like, she didn't stop. She, like, talk about the opposite of limiting beliefs. This chick was like, imposter syndrome, what? No, I can do whatever I want. Stop telling me what to do. Everybody move. I know what I can do. You don't. Watch me. Just keep in mind that 1882, right? Like, this is 1882. So she's writing for these publications as a black woman, and she uses a pen name, Iola. And Iola was basically like a nod to her roots. It's like more of a country name, and she used that name to basically connect with her readers, saying like, I'm one of you, I get it, I relate to you, you relate to me, this is who we are as a pen name. It was also important for her to kind of like protect herself. So now it's 1884, she's 22 years old. So she bought herself a ticket. She's going to Fisk University in Nashville, right? So she's traveling between Memphis and Nashville, back and forth, family, school. And then, hey, Stephanie. And then she is, and she's on a train. These new fancy things, these locomotive engines, they're so cool. She's like, I'm not traveling any other way. It's a train for me. She buys a ticket. She's done this a bunch of times. She buys a ticket. They're separated into ladies' cars and like men's cars, or like general cars or whatever. I don't know. But the ladies' car is for ladies, and ladies travel there, and they don't have to worry about dirty old stinky men. So they're up there in the ladies' car. She buys a ticket like she always does, and then some nasty conductor or whoever, some like, I don't know, some staff member of the train, after they already sold her the ticket, they try to boot her out of her seat. Rosa Parks, anyone? This is 71 years before Rosa Parks was doing what she did on the bus, okay? 71 years before. Ida B. Wells is in a train car for ladies, for which she has ridden before, for which she bought a ticket, and the person who worked for the train, whoever it was like, get out. No black women here. You can sit in the black-only car. And she was like, not gonna happen. And he was like, gonna happen. And so they start mouthing off back and forth, and then he grabs her and he starts getting physical with her. You want to know how that ended? She bit him. If you want to treat me like a savage, I'm going to act like a savage. I'm going to bite your hand, and then I'm going to sue you and your whole railroad station, so suck it. So then she did. She bought him. He kicked her off the train. She's like, all right, that's cool. My dress is dirty. I'm going to walk right over to the courthouse, and I'm going to settle this. We're handling it. So she sues the railroad for discrimination, and she wins the case. Black woman in the 1800s. I'm surprised they even saw her case, given what the environment was like at the time. They took her case, and she won it. So imagine who she was, mindset-wise, to have to say, like, yeah, I'm taking this to court in this courthouse full of white men. I'm going to march in there, probably like, you know, some kind of investors in the railroad station, or at least like, I don't know, patrons of the railroad station. And she's like, I'm doing it anyway. And she goes in and she sues them, wins. $500 is like worth $13,000 plus these days. And she wins this case, right? So it's like, don't tell me what I can and can't do. Like, I don't care what my skin color is or my gender or whatever. This isn't right. She was on a mad mission for justice. This woman was like, she was on fire for things that were unjust, and she did something about them every time she saw them. So she wasn't done yet, right? However, this is Tennessee. This is at a time, 1884, this is at a time where Tennessee was right about to say yes to segregation. They're like, we're going to make it state law that blacks and whites have to be separated. So actually, Ida, super cool that you won that case and everything, but like the state court is going to overturn that, and we're going to say, you didn't win. Give us our money back. Blacks and whites should be separated. That's the new state law. What? Oh! So mad. I'm like so mad reading about this. So this is terrible. And then so she, oops, what did I do? Okay, so she's like enraged, but what can she do? This is the new law. It's disgusting, but it's the new law. So you know what? She's like, well, I got a pen. I'm a good writer, so I'm gonna start writing. So she starts writing about that as an unjust event that's happening. And she's basically like going around in all of these publications, getting published north, south, Midwest, whatever, letting people know, putting them on blast that like, this stuff shouldn't stand. Can we see, please, how incredibly stupid this is? And she's writing and she's writing. And she also was a teacher at this point. She got a job teaching again in a Memphis school. And, you know, she couldn't get a job in a white school because they're segregated now. She's good. This is so annoying. Like a little bit of progress, 400 steps back. A little bit of progress, 400 steps back. So anyway. But she's working. She's still working because nothing's going to stop her, obviously. This is 1891 now, and she's still writing, getting published in all of these places, writing about all the injustice around with this black versus white stuff. So what does that get her? Well, her freedom of speech was rewarded with a pink slip. She got fired from her teaching job. That's super cool. As a school, you wanna punish the people who are using their education to cool. Okay. So now she's 29 years old, and she's got some friends who are, Jess, I know, it's incredible. This woman is like, try and stop her. She is a freight train. She's like, I got your locomotive right here. So she's now 29 years old. She's got friends because she's a hustler. And like, she's what's the word for like hustler / busybody in not a gossip way? She's like the mayor of the town. I don't know. So she knew everybody, and she's friends with these three black men that owned a grocery store in town. And this grocery store, it's black owned. So obviously a lot of black people are going to be like, I'm supporting this grocery store. And the white grocery store owners, no likey. So they are getting really upset, and they're threatening these black grocery store owners, and Ida's hearing about it and whatever. Anyway, they attack these black men, these owners of this grocery store, because they don't like the competition in the market. So they attack these guys, and those black men defended themselves, and they got put in jail for it. Of course they did, because of course they did. So anyway, so they're in jail, and guess what? This lynching, for anyone, I don't want to assume everybody understands what this means. Not everybody might understand what this means. Lynching is basically, it's a mob and a group of people, and maybe somebody else can describe it in a better way in the comments, but it's a group of people that decides, without the police around, that this thing shouldn't happen, and we're going to like beat the crap out of somebody, we're going to torture them, and we're going to brutally murder them, and we're going to do it in the name of justice because we decided that this should be a law or something. And they just take it upon themselves to torture and kill somebody in a really grotesque and brutal manner. And it's not illegal. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. I just want to say that lynching as a thing is still not determined in the United States of America as a federal crime. It's still not. It's just sitting. It's just sitting, waiting to be passed. A bill is sitting, waiting to be passed in Congress right now, and it's been sitting. 120 attempts of this, or over 100 attempts for 120 years. The people of this country have been trying to get lynching to stop, like, and to start being like a federal crime, and it is still not. Okay? Just want to put everybody on note. Okay. So lynching, that's what lynching is. So these guys, these grocery store owners that are just out here making a living, being business owners, being amazing, friends of Ida, they get, yes, Sharon, yes, I know. And they get, it's archaic, insane, brutal, awful, and unbelievable. So they get pulled out of the jail cell. So obviously, how do they get pulled out of the jail cell by a lynch mob? They're talking like the friends of the guards or whatever. Like, this is disgusting. It's systematic, okay? So they get them out of there and then they lynch them, meaning they brutally murder them and likely hang them. Because most of the time when lynch mobs were happening, when a mob of usually white men were attacking somebody, usually black men, they would hang them in the end after they completely torture them. It's sick enough to turn your stomach. I can only really talk about it for so long before I get super, super sick because of the visuals that I've seen. But this is what happened to those men, all right? So Ida was through the roof. She's mourning her friends. She's fired up about the lack of justice here. Nobody's doing anything about it, of course, because it's not actually a crime anymore, or at all. It never has been. And so what she decides to do is like, I'm going to go all over the country. I'm going to hit the South. I'm going to circuit. I'm going to go in and I'm going to find out about all these lynchings that keep happening. And I'm going to find out why they're happening. I'm going to find out what really happened. Because the thing about lynchings in the South at this time is that most of the times that these mostly white men would lynch mostly black men, it was because of the lynch mob would say they sexually assaulted a white woman, so we're going to go after them. That was the thing. And then and the law was like, sure, I mean, that sounds right, go for it. And at the time, of course, just for political reference and like cultural reference, there was so much propaganda about black women sexually assaulting white women in general. Like, that was a thing. Like, that was like part of their DNA or something. It was completely ridiculous, but that's what people were pumping out there. So these lynch mobs felt like super justified. Like, whatever, this is what black men do, so this is what we have to do. Of course it's not what they do, but like, this is the excuse that they were giving. So I just like, I'm gonna investigate the crap out of this because I know that's not true. Like, of course that's not true about black men, and lynching should be illegal anyway. So she's finding out all this stuff, and she finds out almost all of these lynching cases had nothing to do with sexual assault on women, and then she decides, and people are threatening her at this point. She's moving around, they're threatening her, like these lynch mobs are threatening her, like other like white activists, whatever, like probably KKK members. They're like after her, and then she's and the straw that broke the camel's back for Ida was she wrote a piece indicating that in fact these lynchings weren't justified. They had nothing to do with they're never justified, but they had nothing to do, most of them had nothing to do with sexual assault on white women. But also, Ida was like, also, guess what? It turns out that like white women almost, might prefer black men. Or, I'm sure I shouldn't say it like that. I didn't read the article because I can't find it. I'm still looking. But she was like basically saying like white women can be in love with black men. How about that? White women can have consent with black men. How about that? And they lost it. They lost their ever-loving minds. They're like, what? Not possible? Blasphemy. And she's like, actually, yeah, it's true. They love black men. So anyway, so then they were like, that is not too far, Ida. We're going to destroy your publication. Now she owns 2 newspapers, right? They burned that stuff to the ground. They trashed all of her equipment. So now she no longer has a newspaper. She's like, you suck. I hate you. But I'm not done writing. That's not going to stop me either. And they said, if you come back to Memphis, you're dead. We'll kill you. And she's like, cool. Thank God I was in New York City at the time. I will move to Chicago now. But I'm not done writing. So suck it again. Gosh, the endurance for this woman. Can you just take a pause? The endurance for this woman. She's literally getting threatened all the time, her whole life. They're threatening to murder her and her family and like whoever comes near her. They're burning her stuff to the ground. They're trying to take her writing ability away so that nobody would ever talk about the idea that lynching should be a crime. That's crazy talk. So anyway, so she's back in Chicago, right? And when she moved to Chicago, she was starting to, Courtney, never underestimate a woman with power, especially this woman. She did things that people in this age aren't even doing right now. And she moves to Chicago, and this is when she's kind of like full court press on women's suffrage. So she wants women to get the right to vote, along with so many other women, and a lot of men in general, were saying, like, hey, like, there's nothing wrong with women getting to vote. Like, hey, my wife makes good decisions. Hey, my sister's pretty cool. Hey, my mom's, like, got some good things to say. So, like, women's suffrage, that was gaining momentum, gaining traction and everything. She was in Chicago fighting for that, and she was, like, still writing about that stuff, and she was around 50 years old by the time women did actually get the right to vote. So she was like, she actually helped to make change. That was powerful. But at the time, too, it was like, mostly just, depending on where you were in the country, mostly just white women at that point had the right to vote. So it wasn't like Ida got exactly what she wanted and what the country deserved, but she was still making change happen. So she's still writing out there. She's still putting her voice out there. She's still making noise about things. And then... we're going to wrap this around with, let's see if I can spill this on myself again. Just kidding, I don't want to. That'll be the third thing I spilled today. Remember Josephine Cochran, if you were here for the first one? In the chat, tell me who Josephine Cochran was and what she did, if you remember her. Because she was number one. She was the first one we did on the Everyday Miracle Woman. Okay, so while you do that, and then... Jessica, I'm tired just listening to what she's dealing with. Yeah, and she's not even done yet. She's like in her 30s. Ugh. Okay, so she goes to, she's in Chicago, right? So the Chicago World's Fair. Do you remember that thing that Josephine Cochran went to? And she, like, won an award for her invention for the dishwasher? Okay. Ida finds out that very same World Fair, 1893, the one that Josephine was at, she was like, they're not letting black exhibitors in. What the F? And they weren't. They weren't letting any black people, man or woman, present their inventions or engineering or whatever at the World Fair. They weren't letting it happen. She's like, you gotta be kidding me. Do I have to do everything around here? And she did have to do everything around here, let's be honest. So what she wants to do is she wants to write an expose to basically say, hey, you guys are so cool. Oh, you're so cool. You're also, like, racist and you're not letting us in. So she decides to find an editor named, he's a lawyer too, he's an editor and a lawyer named Ferdinand Barnett, and guess who else? Guess who else? They were going to fund her piece. She needed investors to, like, fund this piece so that she could, like, blast it to the world. Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass. He's like, I got you, Ida. I got you. Me, Ferdinand. I know he has a weird name, but, like, don't worry, you'll fall in love with him. They get married later. Okay, but, like, Ferdinand, Ferdy, and me, Frederick and Ferdy. That should be like a cartoon. We're going to fund this thing because people need to know. Enough of this, like, we're keeping the blacks out because guess what? Black people have amazing ideas. We need a spot. Like, look at what Ida's doing. Do we need any more evidence? Please. She, like, 5 seconds after she got free from slavery, she's like, I'm going to change the world. And then she started doing it. Like, come on. So, anyway, Ferdinand, Ferdy Pants, he was, like, a huge stud apparently, and she was like, I can't get enough of you. Thank you for funding my thing. I owe you my life. In fact, I'll give you my life. Want to be my husband? And he's like, yes. I don't think that's how that went down, by the way, but then it happened. They got married, and then they had 4 kids, and they lived happily ever after until they both died, but I'm not done yet. So in 1896 now, she's still making change, right? She's, like, mouthing off to everybody who's going to listen because this stuff is still unjust everywhere. I mean, it still is today, like crazy, so who are we kidding? 1896, she founded the National Association of Colored Women, and 2 years later, in 1898, she brought her anti-lynching campaign to the White House. She's like, all right, if nobody else is going to listen, if you guys aren't actually doing anything, like, I'm going to talk to President McKinley. Maybe he'll do something. So she's talking to him to make reform. She's writing to him. She's leading a, it's so early in the morning for my brain. What are those things when people, like, put it in the chat for me? When people march, protest. Wow. I'll be there. Just give me a minute. Okay. So she's like, you know, she's basically charging the White House being like, wake up. And McKinley didn't do much or anything at all. And then in the 20th century, she's like, let's go to the new century and see what happens. Good old Woody Wilson is our president now. And she's like, hey, Woody, you too. McKinley's an idiot. He didn't listen. How about you? You gonna listen? You gonna be a good boy? Like, come on. I got some things to say. And she brought it to him. We know he didn't do anything or much at all because it's 2021 and lynching is still not a federal crime. What the F? So anyway, this didn't stop her. Like, so, segue real quick. So for the people who are like, I don't want to hear somebody say no to what I have to offer for my business. Ida B. Wells. I'm gonna Ida B. Wells you, if I hear that again. Being afraid to hear no. She took it to the president. She didn't care. She's like, I'll take it to the next one too. I don't care. So, all right. So then she worked with the National Equal Rights League. First of all, it's like impossible for me to keep straight all the leagues and associations and memberships that she had, because she was not only founding member, but like had her hands in everything for like everything unjust at the time. So she called, she was basically saying to Woodrow Wilson too, President Wilson, she's like, oh, by the way, these government jobs, where are the black people? She wanted to end discrimination for hiring practices for government jobs, because it was ludicrous. Like there's so many government jobs, and yet there are no black people in positions. Come on, hello, like let's go. It's been years since like slaves have now been free. Are we over it? People are being educated. They're going to schools. Like we're still citizens. Let's go. So she created the first African-American kindergarten in her area, so that these kids would have a shot right out the gate. They would start learning to read and write right in the beginning, and she was still fighting for women's rights to vote at this point in time. Okay, so in 1909, she participated in, shout out to the hometown, the Niagara Movement. What's that, Sandra? Well, the Niagara Movement took place in Fort Erie, Ontario, which is, I could probably pitch a ball from the river on the American side to the Fort Erie side. So if you're in Buffalo and you want to cross the border in downtown Buffalo to Canada, that's Fort Erie right there. So that's called the Peace Bridge. So Fort Erie is right next door to us in Buffalo, and that's where Ida Wells was having meetings. These meetings were held for like social political action, civil rights for African Americans. They were fighting for these things, and that's what they would do. They would meet there. And then this whole movement, the Niagara Movement, was the trigger for the NAACP. So that NAACP organization, Ida was basically noticed as a founding member for that. She later was removed from that organization like 2 years later, but she was like, I mean, what didn't she do? Where wasn't she like speaking? She had a voice everywhere she went. So in 1910, she founded the Negro Fellowship League, which helped newly arrived migrants from the South to the North to help get them jobs, help get them acclimated. And in 1913, so just 3 years later, she founded what could have been, what like all the articles are saying could have been the first black women's suffrage group. Because again, like white women were when women were given the right to vote, it was mostly just white women, and she was like, hey, you said women, we're actually still women, so let's go. So she did that in the Chicago's Alpha Suffrage group, or Alpha Suffrage Club. So she's like, how many organizations? I think we're up to like 9 at this point, and I'm not even listing half of them, like literally not even half of them. And then so from 1913 to 1916, she was serving as a probation officer at the Chicago Municipal Court. She's like, you know what? Okay, guys, what you're doing is super cute, but like, you're not doing it right. So I'm just gonna sit here and watch you in the court itself, and just like make sure that you're like doing the law right, because you're not. Anyway, so how did she even have time for all of this? She had 4 kids. I have 4 kids, and I can barely get out the door without flooding my car. How did she do this? So 1930, not an exaggeration, she made 1930. So we're like 10 years past, 15 years later, 14 years later, she's like, okay, I was a probation officer, this stuff is disgusting, I can't make much change from the courtroom. You know what I can do? I can run for Senate. This chick. It's 1930. This powerhouse black woman in America was like, I don't care what you say to me, I'm gonna run for Senate. She didn't win, but she freaking ran. Like, she freaking ran for Senate. Do you know how much organization that's gotta take? How much intense work? How much communication? How much rallying? How much, like financial support she'd have to get? I mean, just, this woman. Can we please? Oh my gosh. So, okay, so that's 1930. In 1931, March 25th, it was just a year later, she actually passed away, 68 years old, from kidney disease. I believe that the kidney disease, this is my personal opinion, not backed by science. I believe that that the kidney disease was brought on by drinking all the disgusting everything that the United States fed her for the 68 years that she was alive. And her kidneys were like, we can't filter all this nonsense and garbage. We're done here. Ida, you keep putting us in the line of fire. We keep having to hear and see these awful things. They keep feeding us this. We're out. And her kidneys just shut down. She couldn't do it anymore. And she's like, I hear you. This is a mess out here. I hear you. So I believe her kidneys were poisoned by society. But while she was with us, She made such incredible major change. She was an influence to her children, of course, and her grandchildren. She's memorialized in places that she should be, in museums, in Union Station, in New York City. She made major moves in ways that both men and women can learn and grow from, and that men and women were watching and making change because of. So, Jen, this is the best lesson, learning so much. I wish you were my teacher from K through 12 if I had to go back in time. Could you, I mean, like, if our teachers were to give us story time with these, like, biographies and bring these people back to life in a way that, like, where it sounded like gossip, everybody would pay attention. Like, we'd all be, like, history buffs. It'd be amazing. But she left behind such an impressive legacy for, like, social and political heroism. Like, she was doing things at a time where everybody was like, you can't do that. Everybody. I mean, even the black people in her community, her black friends and family, are terrified for her life, right? And so everybody's trying to keep her from doing some of these things because people are literally saying, we're going to murder you. Hey, Ida, we're going to kill you. Hey, do that again and we're going to murder you. And she's like, okay, try me. And she never got murdered. Like, she was the bravest person on the planet. And she was doing it at a time where black women were at the lowest of the totem pole, like just below black men. So maybe at the time, like the socioeconomic culture and just like culture in general was white man, way below white women, below black men, below black women. And she was like, yeah, I might be down here. I'm going to fight you up here though. Come get me. God, like, ah! So this imposter syndrome crap that we hear from everybody being like, I don't know if I should say that online. I don't know if I should show up like that. What's my family gonna think? Ida B. Wells. That's what she's gonna think, okay? Ida B. Wells. What's Ida B. Wells gonna think from her grave if you say that again, is what I wanna know. She'll be like, you know what? I didn't bite that man's hand on a train for you to say that garbage. Are you a woman or not? Thank you. Thank you, Ida. I thought you said that. Thank you, the ghost of Ida, for always being on my shoulder and like chirping at me when I'm stupid. Thank you. I'm gonna Ida B. Wells myself anytime I get my head. So, by the way, this is really cool. After she died, this is 2020, last year, Ida B. Wells was given, like she's deceased at this point, obviously, but her family was awarded a Pulitzer for courageous reporting. Because she was on the front lines, like legit. So in our country, just recovering from the Civil War, and she's reporting on all this stuff. They gave her a Pulitzer, and like, yes, she wasn't alive for it, but like she got what she deserved. Too late, but she's being recognized for it. So like, you never really know the legacy of impact that you have, that you can leave on others, for others, with others, unless you're brave enough to try. And Ida was like the epitome of bravery. I mean, I want there to be a biopic. I want there to be a Netflix about her. Bringing her story to life. Could you imagine in like one of those awesome Netflix dramas, like the way that they really do the biographies well? I would watch that over and over and over. And I am so glad. Yeah, she got what she earned. Courtney, like, she earned it. She deserved it. She wasn't asking for it, and I'm just glad that they actually recognized it. I wish she could have seen the award being given to her in real life, but like, it's there now and nobody can take it from her. And so I'm just really glad that you guys have been joining me for these everyday miracle women in history, because I think it's important for us to know who these women were, where they came from, what they fought for, so that we can stop taking it so easy and pretending like we can't do anything. That we pretend that we get to like believe these stupid stories that mean nothing, you know, where we're coming from a place of like opportunity all over the place, and we sit back and kind of like get lazy while other people were literally fighting for their lives, fighting for justice, fighting for their friends, their family, their community, their society, and their country. And we're like, I don't know what they're gonna think of me. Do you know how lame that sounds when you start putting it in contrast to these women who did these things, right? And like, I'm guilty too, so I'm not calling anybody out in specifics, but I just hope that these stories basically stay alive in you, and that you can reference them and think of them every time you look at a dishwasher, every time you see a Hollywood film, Hedy Lamarr, and anytime you basically think about anything unjust in the world and what you might want to do about that. Ida B. Wells. Because you're capable, you really are. And if they could do it then with what they had, then we can definitely do it now with what we have. So thank you for joining me for the Everyday Miracle Women in History. I had a lot of fun learning about these women, and I'm super inspired by all of them. And I love that you guys have cared about these women too, because I think that they will continue, and other women too in history will continue to be needing to be brought back to life so that people can learn from them and do even better things in their life because of them. So next week I'm going to go back to teaching about things that are going to help you grow and scale your business and be more successful and do what you love and earn an awesome income. But until then, it's been a blast. I've loved it so much. So you can hit me up with any kind of commentary that you liked best about it, or if you want to hear another series coming soon, let me know. And I like your ideas. I like your brains. I like your hearts. I like your faces. I like who you are. I like that you're here. And I will be getting back to my, I have a meeting in 6 minutes. Ooh, I'm not going to be late for this meeting. That's so exciting. Oh my gosh. I smell like curry, but like on Zoom, nobody knows. You know what I mean? This is great. I love it. Okay. I love you guys. I hope you kill your Thursday. Thursday is my favorite day of the week, except for Mondays. I love Thursdays so much. And I love you, Maria. I'll see you later. And I will catch you guys in the next live next week. Take care.